Thank you for watching CTR TV. I'm Christy Olds. We're heading into the busy holiday season, which also means we're heading into the 4th annual CT Realtors Foundation Be Homeful for the Holidays campaign. It is a partnership with the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness and looks to provide stuffed Paddington bears, books, or blankets to children in homeless shelters throughout the holiday season. Joining us today is the CEO of CCEH, and that's Richard Cho. And this is obviously a big focus right now. Talk a little bit about the Be Homeful campaign and what it really looks to do.
Yeah, so this is a campaign to end child and family homelessness in our state. And really in partnership with the Connecticut Realtors Foundation as well as Citizens Bank, we've been able to create a partnership where children across the state of Connecticut who are sleeping in shelters, who don't have a stable home, can get gifts during the holiday season. They can get a Paddington bear, a Paddington book, or a baby blanket. The best thing about this is, though, because those gifts were actually underwritten by the Realtors Foundation as well as Citizens Bank, the actual money from that is used to purchase those gifts goes into a fund that enables us to help families who are on the brink of homelessness, that enables them to keep their homes or find new homes.
And that's one of the things is when people make that donation, if for every $25 a child gets a bear, they're not actually purchasing that bear or that book or that blanket. That money is going to do even greater good.
That's right, exactly. So it's you really the people who contribute to this really are able to help in two ways. You give some comfort to a child who doesn't have a stable home, but you also help contribute to the solution, which is to help prevent families from having to fall further into homelessness, and where we can get them a stable home.
And one of the big things that we always talk about are the bear raisers. And you put up a little tree and you put the tags on it and you encourage businesses or organizations across the state to get involved, right?
Yeah, we've partnered with businesses all over the state who actually set up these bear raiser drives. They usually set up a holiday tree, and we can provide them with a kit that enables them to hang tags across that tree, and then when customers come by, they can actually take a tag down and they can donate $25 to give a gift to a child, and that money again goes back into that shelter diversion fund.
When you're looking at the programs that are funded throughout the year, the money that's raised helps do some of those things. Touch on some of the things that CCEH does.
So we represent over 100 organizations across the state, most of whom are homeless shelter providers or homeless services organizations. The money that we raise through Be Homeful enables those organizations to be able to assist families. Anybody who experiences a housing crisis in our state can call our state's 2-in-1 info line. And 2-in-1 will try to assess the situation, and in many cases they're able to help that household just through that phone call. But in many cases they don't. About 80,000 people call 2-in-1 every year saying that they're in some kind of housing crisis. Of that 80,000, about 28,000 get referred to one of our 7 regional networks of homeless service organizations. And those regional networks will conduct a face-to-face interview with that household and find out what's going on. And really the goal is to figure out, instead of just sending them directly to shelter, are there ways we can help resolve their homelessness situation before it has to happen further? And sometimes that's about reconnecting with family. In other cases, it's about helping them keep their home if they're back on rent, or to find a new home. And the dollars that we raise through Be Homeful enables us to provide that flexible funding to keep that family in their home or help them find a new home.
And the ultimate goal is to keep people in their homes, to have them not end up in the shelters. Anyway, and like you said, sometimes it's just either a monthly rent payment or something like that that can make all the difference.
That's right. I mean, homeless shelters are a necessity. We need to have safe places where people who have no other alternatives can sleep. But if anyone who's been inside a shelter knows, it's not a place that we want children to stay in for any long period of time. And if we can avoid children from having experienced the trauma associated with being in a shelter, I think that just has long-term benefits for that child. So really the premise of Be Homeful is that we can really end homelessness before it begins. We can help children to not ever have to experience that trauma of homelessness.
Some of the foundation trustees and our Paddington ambassadors for our local associations recently went on a tour and saw the homeless shelter, saw the diversion center, saw 2-in-1.
That's right.
How important is it to have people see what it is? You touched on the fact that a shelter is a necessity, but it's not a place a child wants to be.
That's right. I think most of the people, kind of general public in our state, when they think of homelessness, they think of a person who's sleeping on a park bench, someone who's panhandling, holding a sign on the side of a highway, and certainly those are people who are in need. But so many people experiencing homelessness are also families, and families with young children. We have a significant number of families with children under the age of 6 who experience homelessness. And they don't often sleep outside or are in places that are visible. I think it's really important to understand not only what the faces of homelessness are, but also that there are solutions, that homelessness is not a crisis that is just something that we can kind of shrug at and say we don't know how to solve it. We can actually solve this. we've developed a system in Connecticut, which is what that tour really represented, where anybody who experiences a housing crisis knows where to get help, and they can get different types of help. What that tour was able to show was some of the places that you go where you have that counseling conversation to figure out how to either keep your home or find a new home. And again, not everybody can be assisted that way. That's where shelters are important. And once you're in shelter, we do our best to try to match people to other types of housing.
How is the state doing in terms of eliminating, reducing family homelessness?
We're one of the few states in the country where we've been seeing year after year declines in homelessness. You can't say that about every other state, unfortunately, but we're proud of the fact that we've been able to decrease homelessness. We've seen a 32% decline in homelessness since 2007, and particularly among those who are using our shelter system. That said, we still have more work to do. There's still on any given night about 2,000 or 3,000 people who are experiencing homelessness. Over the course of the year, something like 8,000 people end up using our homeless shelters. So we need to have more work to do, but at least we've figured out what the recipe is. And I think the key is now we need more resources to be able to scale our solutions, and that we can actually see a virtual end to homelessness in our state.
I was going to say, if you have all the resources, can we put an end to this?
I think we can. I mean, we may never be able to create a situation where people don't fall into some sort of housing crisis. They may have some emergency medical situation. They may fall on hard times. They may be struggling with addiction issues. I know Connecticut REALTORS Foundation's been supporting work on the opioid crisis, and those are real issues that households face. But what we can do is set up a system where anybody who falls into crisis, we can get you help immediately. Our goal is to try to help people as early as possible when they experience a housing crisis, and get to the point where we don't need many shelter beds across the state. We may need some as people are moving from a state of homelessness into housing, but our goal is to make homelessness rare. It's to make it brief so that it can only be something measured in days rather than weeks or months, and to make it one time or non-recurring so that once people are homeless, they get housing again, they never fall back into that crisis.
You've been with CCEH for about a year now. What's your takeaway from this year, from the past year?
That's a great question. Next week will be my 1-year anniversary. I'm really proud of the system that we built in Connecticut. I'm proud of the successes that we've had. That said, I continue to see so many people in our shelters and our streets as I go across the state and visit programs who are still in need of help. And my message is always, hang in there, right? We have solutions for you, and really in partnership with organizations such as Connecticut REALTORS Foundation and Citizens Bank, along with our government partners, we can all work together on a shared solution. And my message would be that help is on the way. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be able to have an impact in the state that I've called home for over a decade, and to be able to be the first state in the country that can say that we have actually ended homelessness.
That would be pretty remarkable, wouldn't it?
That would be great.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, just thank to the Connecticut REALTORS Foundation for the partnership. And again, I want just everyone should hold a bear raiser drive or contribute. If you see a tree that's set up with Paddington bears, make a donation. That's a way to help children to not have to experience homelessness.
Richard, thank you for joining us on CTR TV. And if you would like to find out more about the Be Homeful for the Holidays campaign, you can go to ctrealtors-care.org. There's all the information there you need to make a donation or, like Richard said, set up your own bear raiser.